quarter on
the rotors and all the intakes. So in 2017, everything will be basically new except for the two we put in this year. And I talked to him today, he said he thinks he's got everything in stock. The only two things he said he might not have is those two gearboxes, and they're not so sure he can get those in stock. So I told him that we were going to go ahead and budget this year for 2017, put two gearboxes in, he gets no problem, we'll just get them set on the shelf.
Okay.
So we're good on that. So I didn't know how deep you wanted to take that. That was just some of the stuff that I off the top of my head. I didn't know how deep.
Sounds good. I just need to probably put the immediate thing, no analysis.
And I'll ask him on that vibration, but I don't think it's gonna be every time the meters are gonna be doing that. In order to put that on that gearbox, we'll have to put some kind of, because as that thing spins, it puts stuff everywhere. I thought someone was gonna have an analyzer on the side of the gearbox.
I was putting like a stick and right shift. And then dual one doesn't go.
Yeah, so vibrating.
And you can put your
I'll ask him. I'll get the perky data from him.
so it lasted 15 years.
And the other two still work.
Where's that? Dave Frank came in and said to tell you he's down in the beach.
Okay.
He was all dressed up. Dress black,
I think it was coming to
dress
me.
shirt.
I think they got a Legion meeting tonight. Station. I think we got a Legion.
It's more like hot date.
There's 3 cars in the house last night.
I know he's been dating. Said so.
Really?
Showed me a fancy diamond necklace he bought for somebody for Christmas. A picture of it.
Oh. Yeah, I wonder. Look at this. Watch out.
Well, good for him.
Riding on the prowl. On New York.
Howdy.
Again, but I
Huh?
can find one.
And the right hand shows up.
Went and bought him a Mercedes. See that?
Is that his? Wow, I seen that sitting outside there. Well, I guess he didn't have to tell me. I didn't know that was his. They bought that big motor home.
Well, he had that a while. He
They
buy
bought a
the
good
other
one.
one.
Yeah. They bought a
Had
big
a
one.
heck of an insurance settlement.
He was living in the house for the last 20 years, maybe more.
Oh, longer than that.
So, well, I've only been there 18 years, was there until about it. So, yeah, he might have had something in his life.
Yeah, it was when she was still healthy for so long.
She's been dying for that 15 years.
Probably had a good life.
Good gearbox. He said, "Look, it's worst case scenario."
Howdy. Everybody see the fat man and get drunk?
If you've got one,
Hmm?
and you got one of them.
Santa New Year's? Christmas Eve?
What do you happen to do it like that?
That's almost everybody I talk to is like, I didn't make it to the ball.
That's a lovely job.
Maybe it's just me getting older.
But
No,
the
it's not.
big calls are.
You know, all kids aside, all the, because when the rotors run, they don't have a bypass. That's what all that is. I had to go through and figure out what the wiring scheme to bypass, so I can turn the rotors on and the mixers at the same time. It was a heck of a, because I remember even to sit here, everything reprogrammed. Hope I can get all back and going. No, I just had to rewire stuff.
No?
You're
Anyway,
way smarter
it's
than
pretty
you
short
think.
agenda.
Well, it's crazy, isn't it? So, but now, the rotors, we've got all the mixers in it now too, so now the rotors, when we got the 2 rotors out, all 4 mixers are done, so hopefully now, I don't know, we ran, maybe we go. We already ran at, I put down 2.1
We're good? I call this January 7th Utility Advisory Commission meeting to order.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, if there's any comments from the public? Seeing none, moving right along. Consent agenda, does any commissioner have an item they would like to remove from the agenda? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion Waldman, second Learned, to accept the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda passes. New business item number 1, Gons?
Well, good evening, everyone. The first agenda is has to do with a recommendation to the City Council to award a supply contract for 2 new gearboxes and rotor assembly. I'll give you a brief introduction, and then I'll have Scott Milholland get into a little more detail about the oxidation ditch. The Kill Creek water resource recovery facility houses 4 Gorg gearboxes attached to a brush maxi rotors. The rotors provide the oxidation ditch with the proper amount of dissolved oxygen to sustain the necessary microbial life. So it also plays a very important role in the nitrification and denitrification phases that will keep the city in compliance with the current KDHE effluent discharge permits. I don't know if you know Scott, but let me present him. He is the facility supervisor, and he put together some pictures and some photos of what the oxidation ditch works. So with that, Scott, if you can.
Yep. Evening, gentlemen.
Evening.
Photo remote up there?
Yeah, we do have a clicker.
Yeah, you should be able to click your way through it if you want.
The first slide we're going to look at is the actual maxi rotors, and basically what, like Gon said, what these actually do is they promote dissolved oxygen. We've got 4 of these inside the complete oxidation ditches. So there's 2 oxidation ditches, 2 rotors per ditch. Basically what these are doing, these will actually run through a nitrification and a denitrification. What that means is basically what we're doing is they're a big living organism. That whole wastewater treatment plant is one giant micro living organism. What this does, it actually provides dissolved oxygen in the water for the actual microbial life to live. What has happened is one of the end bearings on the far side has deteriorated and come off, and what happened, as that came off, it dropped that whole rotor down, putting an undue thrust where you can kind of see right there on that big disc end. As that dropped out, it put an undue thrust on that, dropped that whole entire assembly in the bottom of our oxidation ditch. That happened on a Friday. Monday, when we came back in, we found another rotor that we've had previously repaired, was also singing, had a real high-pitched sound. We shut it off. It was done. One of the internal bearings on the inside of it apparently went out. What we're doing tonight, we need basically 2 new gearboxes and 2 new end bearings on both ends. You can kind of see there is one of the pictures right there where the end bearing, what that is, if you look at the rubber part of that, that's a big torque thruster. And what that does, these are not on a VFD, variable frequency drive, so when these actually start, as they start, they kind of start relatively slow, but the rubber that's around those end bearings, they take that initial torque thrust. They're on a 60-horse motor, so you can imagine these are about 30-some feet long. They're sitting submerged in water. As they start, that initial thrust, that takes the initial load of that. As that other one dropped off, that bearing on the end bearing dropped off on the side, it actually put an undue thrust on that and tore the complete rotor assembly apart on that thrust bearing. There's another picture of the thrust bearing as a whole. It's basically a steel assembly surrounded with rubber. The next bearing, you can see it's a little bit closer up, that's that same thrust assembly. You can see the rubber that's torn out on the end of the bearings. So basically, what's gonna have to happen, we'll have to have 2 new thrust assemblies, 2 gearboxes, 2 end bearings. There's no sense putting a brand new gearbox in if the end bearing on the other side is faulty. So for $5,000 is what the end bearings cost, you're looking at a $20,000 gearbox. There's no sense of putting a gearbox in unless you replace the end bearing. The problem with not replacing these in, here's basically another picture. You can kind of see that end bearing hooked up. You can see the sleeve over the top that holds the end bearing. There's a stay stand that sits below there. You can kind of see the dipstick on the left where you check the oil, and you do. On these, there's not an oil drain. You physically have to suck the oil out of the top, put the oil back in. There's a good one. That's one of the ones off the number 1. That's what they're supposed to look like. Again, there's one with the rotor not present. So the problem with these not running, we're not putting enough dissolved oxygen in the water. Without enough dissolved oxygen, your microorganisms are not happy. You're starting to not meet permit limits. So your ammonia is the key factor that starts to get out of compliance. So if this happened, it's a good thing that it did happen in the conditions that it did happen in the winter. When it's cold like that outside, the way it is right now, if it's 30, 40 degrees, cold water promotes more dissolved oxygen than hot water. So if this happened in, let's just say it's happened in the middle of July, we'd be in serious trouble, because we'd be out of compliance in less than a week. As it is now, we're coming up on 2 weeks. I can start seeing my ammonia limits start to climb. We're 6 to 8 weeks lead time out in getting these in. I talked to the supplier today. We might be able to expedite that and maybe have them in 4 weeks. So, what Gons and myself have talked about doing, all the permitted maintenance has been done on these. Basically, all that's required is oil changes. They require them once every 5 years. We do them twice a year. We do them in the spring, we do them in the fall. We've did them since day 1. I've been with the city of Gardner for 18 years. Been with Kill Creek plant for the last, since its inception, since it was open. Here's a little, that's basically them running, them rotors running. Ours are a little different because ours are covered. Ours are probably twice as long, and ours are a little bit more submerged. Another picture there. That's not of our plant, but that's basically the same type of rotors. The picture on the left, where they're sitting with the gearbox, that's exactly the same gearbox that we have. The maxi rotor that's on the left is actually the rotor that we have. The rotor right now, as that thing broke off, is sitting in the bottom of the oxidation ditch, about 14 foot down. We're in the process now trying to get that out of there. In order to get that out, it looks like we're going to have a couple divers come in and dive down in, put a strap around it, pull it back up so we can take our boom truck and pull it out of there to assess the damage of the rotor. It says 91,000. We might not be that. We might just be, it might just be 2 end bearings, 2 rotors, and a couple different pieces on the rotor itself, but we won't know until we get it out and get it analyzed. So, worst case scenario, it's going to be 90-some thousand for parts and labor. Might not be that. Right now, I do know that we need 2 gearboxes and 2 end bearings, if nothing else happens. If I pull that out and everything is perfect, we'll pull it out, put the 2 new end bearing, the end bearing on, the rotor on, we're good to go. But we won't know that until we get the rest of it out. So that's where we're sitting right now. The divers are probably roughly a week and a half out. They're on a big project in Kansas City, Missouri. As far as utility divers, there's not a whole lot of them around that dive in sewage. So that's where we're at right now. So, any questions?
So you got a couple weeks before you can pull it out. Does that push?
We're trying right now. We've actually made some grappling hooks to try. If you can look at that picture, as those fins set up, there's actually spaces between those fins with 7/16 bolts. What we're trying to do is hook one of those fins with like a grappling hook where we can pull it up. Right there on that right-hand side, if you see that big disc on the end, what we're going to try to do is pull that up enough where we can get a strap on that side of that disc and just pull the whole thing out as one. Because basically that shaft that sits through there, it's a 22-inch shaft that runs across there. It's just a hollow piece of ductile iron pipe. The inside of that's hollow, and then they put the end bearings and the torque thrusters on. All those fins that you see running across there, those can all be replaced. The majority of the time after talking to Luke from Kruger, he said when these things do fall down, because they're prone to do just that, When they fall, they're in water, they're hollow, they don't just fall down and bend everything, they pretty much just kind of float down and set. So we pull it out of there, we might not have a whole lot of damage at all, or we could have some serious damage, but without us getting that out, setting it up on a couple sawhorses, we have no idea. It weighs about 6,000 pounds the way it's sitting right now.
Are you guys gonna be off in by a couple weeks, we've got to wait to get that
The
out?
problem that we're having right-
Order everything and then.
The problem I'm having now is the gearboxes. If we can get the gearboxes in and I can at least get one of them going, the one that's in there now, the rotor's still in place, just the gearbox is bad. We had that gearbox replaced, Douglas Pump rebuilt that gearbox about 1.5 years ago, and it looks like the internal bearing has failed again. They went to a different bearing company because the lead time was so long getting them. These are a Nord gearbox, are made in Denmark. The bearings come from Denmark. So they went to IBT and tried to get, they mic'd it, same size of bearings, everything should have been the same. Apparently it didn't. Because, you know, the other ones lasted 14 years, they rebuilt it and lasted 1.5 years. So there's something said going back to OEM specs. So that's kind of where we're at now. Until we pull it out, we won't know the extent of the rotor. As far as the gearbox, I get the other gearbox in, I can put it back in operation. At least we'll get one of the rotors back in and going. This one, we won't know the extent until we pull it out. So, as far as preventive maintenance, I've been talking to Gons with that. Really, by specs, OEM specs, we're above and beyond everything we should be doing. We're going to start going ahead and doing an oil analysis on them. These are all cast iron forged bull gears inside of that gearbox. So when we do oil analysis, we'll be able to determine whether it's a bearing failure maybe, or cast iron gears. When we change the oil, we run it through a filter process to see if we've got any chips or any nicks, anything that'll get caught in like a paint filter is what basically we'd use. It takes a little longer to drain it, but that'll give you the determining factor whether you've got any kind of particulate matter in there that has to do with the gear drives or the bearings or seals. So that's one of the items I think we'll start doing every time we change oil, at least once a year. When we do change the oil, because we change it twice a year, we'll start running it through a steam machine or somebody that will actually do a thorough oil analysis to see exactly what's going on. So that's where we're at.
These things are supposed to last 10, 15 years.
Average life on them is 10 to 15 years. He said he's seen them fail as early as 7 without preventive maintenance. So we're coming on 14, or we're past 14. So we're about right in life expectancy. Talking with Gons, I think we'll budget 2 more of these for 2017 is what we're gonna submit, and just replace them. You know, it's kind of like a car. I don't have the same car I had 15 years ago, or the transmission or anything like that. So they do take a beating. They take a lot of wear and tear. And with our I&I that we have, our undue I&I, infiltration and inflow, you know, I'm running 90 million gallons a year more than what I should be running. So, and it doesn't sound like a lot on these, but you can see just by that picture right there, as those are submerged in the water, if I get a heavy rainfall, like a 2-inch rainfall, those things will almost be completely submerged. What that does, that puts undue stress on that torque thruster bearing and all the parts that go along with that rotor. So once we get the I&I, which Gons and myself got some plans and some ideas on cutting down on the I&I, we can hopefully cut down on some of this. So
So they're submerged, they still able to oxidize the water?
They are, but once if they get 3/4 submerged, what happens is they'll actually trip out. The breakers will actually physically shut it down. It just physically says, I can't do no more. The motors are 60-horse motors. Once they get too much, they'll actually overamp and they'll actually shut down. So then we physically have to go back out, wait for the water to drop back down, the levels will drop back down, reset them, and then they'll start working again. So that's where we're at. Fun.
The motor listed on here, it says 75 horsepower.
I think they're 60 or 65, I think. They could be 75, don't quote me.
Okay.
We've got so many, I mean, I've got 50 different motors in throughout the system.
There'll be some electrical upgrades required if there's...
As far as the motors are in good shape. We pull amp, every time we change those, actually we'll put an amp probe on them, as long as they're pulling.
I'm just saying, a 75 horse is gonna...
They're a good sized motor, yeah, they're good sized. Like the submersible pump that we're running 78 horsepower Fairbanks, we're running 4 of them. So, when we're pumping water, we're running 5,000-6,000 gallons a minute coming into that plant, so it's a pretty good load. That plant is a 2.5 GPM plant, so it was designed for 2.5 million gallons a day. I get a 2-inch rainfall, I'll run 6 million through it. So when you come up there and that water's coming in, it's gotta go somewhere. You can't just shut it off. So what it's doing, it's actually putting undue wear and tear on not only the rotors, on all the equipment. So it's not just the rotors, it's the grinders, it's the gearbox, it's the entire system. You know, this whole system is basically, like I said, it's one giant living organism. So we have no chemical costs at all to that plant. It's all done by microorganisms. In order for those microorganisms to work, you've got to keep them happy. They've got to eat, they've got to reproduce, and that's how the whole system works. They're kind of like us. Once we get used to coming home, kicking off our shoes, getting something to eat, something to drink, going to bed, taking a shower, that's kind of the same way these guys work. We look at them every day under a microscope. Once you start throwing a monkey wrench into what things happen like this, all of a sudden they're used to the dissolved oxygen comes on. Hey, at 2 o'clock it comes on, at 3 o'clock it shuts off. There's different levels of microorganisms. They're not all the same. You got free swimming stoxylids, and I could go on and on. Once you throw a monkey wrench in the plant, you screw the whole plant up. So once they're happy and they're reproducing and eating, everything's good. What that does, that keeps keeps you in permit, keeps you in compliance. You don't have any of your ammonia levels, you don't have a problem with that. All your nitrification, denitrification is working as it should, you're golden. Something like this happens, a mechanical problem, it's a problem. So what we're backed up to right now is hopefully we can get these back in and not be out of compliance. So that's my biggest fear. So, is it a big deal with the state? Absolutely. If it does start to get up to the creep to that number, I'll have to call the state and say, look, we're gonna be out of compliance and this is the reason why. So, that's where we're at right now.
I just want to share, I'm impressed with your report, the specifics of your report tonight. So.
Thank you very much.
Eat, drink, and
If
be.
you guys ever want to come out, I encourage you guys to come out. I'll be more than happy to give you guys a tour of the plant. Yeah, I know how it sounds, but it's actually very, very interesting. When I started with the city 18 years ago, I was with the Public Works Department. I had an opportunity to go wastewater. Water's pretty cool, but wastewater it's a lot more. There's a lot more to it. A lot more. And it sounds funny, but there's a lot more to wastewater. I mean, it's actually, you're taking water that's dirty, you're cleaning it back up, and when you're done, it looks like drinking water. So, I encourage all you guys to come out. Be more than happy to give you a tour. We've got a bunch of good guys out there, and they do a good job. So, thank you. You bet.
Any other questions, comments? I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to recommend City Council order supply contractor Kruger in the amount of $91,000, or a maximum of $91,230 for a new rotor, all parts associated with the rotor, because I think I heard that it might be cheaper than that, so I put maximum.
Yes, an estimate of the maximum we might be spending.
Yeah. Because otherwise, if you say to spend that, then you have to spend that, so I just say maximum, so.
Motion Boyd, second Waldman. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Discussion item number 1.
Review the 2015 fourth quarter electric outage report. We have attached a lot of the information we gathered, but in summary, in the fourth quarter, electric staff responded to the 18 outages, 6 caused by equipment problems, 9 by animals, 1 caused by damage from others, 1 caused by other reasons, and 1 caused from unknowns. The average response time was 18 minutes, and the average length of the outage 42 minutes. And last week, well, that'll be in the next discussion item, which is the annual report.
Any questions? Let's move on to that one.
Okay, on the review the 2015 outage report. Last meeting we had, there was a question of how many outages we had due to a tree. And you can see we only had 1 in 2015.
Back in May.
So the tree trimming program we have seems to be working because we only had 1 outage due to trees. For 2015, we had 52 outages, 20 caused by equipment problems, 1 by a tree, 16 caused by animals, 7 caused by storms, 1 caused by damage from others, and 1 caused by other reasons. 3 causes were unknown. The average response time for 2015 was 50 minutes, and the average length of the outage 54 minutes. And attached is a complete report for 2015.
So, I just have one question. How do you determine if it's unknown or other? Like, I get the one with the kids, that's other. But like, a breaker tripped, nobody knows why, I assume, so it's listed as other, but then there's another one that's, a fuse blew, and that's unknown. So, I'm guessing unknown is, Lynn, tends
we
to
don't
be,
have-
we think something happened with the equipment, but we're not sure what it was, and other is just maybe outside interference, something else.
I think the unknown is that we have no clue actually what happened. That's the unknown. You cannot pinpoint the root cause, and the other might be various other reasons that we don't want to actually put every single one. So it's more like a pool of reasons why that outage occurred. But the unknown is that we don't have any we have a root cause for the reason for that outage.
I mean, it's not by very many, so.
So, Don, what is this, I'm looking at the 3-year history, and it does give specifics per month, per year. Are we gaining anywhere? Do we have any trends? Do we see red flags on equipment failure as far as budget needs, or trees, or animals? Obviously trees is not a problem. Is there a way to come up with a chart to see if we're getting worse than the 2 previous years, or we're?
Yeah, we can compare, we can do a pie chart or something that can actually see the the past 5 years and do a comparison, because it's kind of hard to see that on here, but, I don't see anything alarming at this point, because some of the, you can see some of the outage usually occurred at the beginning of the end of spring and at the beginning of the fall. So you can see the trend is still the same. As far as the actual reasons, I will need to do some additional analysis to respond to your question.
Well, if you look just October, I see just that month looks like we're much worse.
You mean versus like
The previous 2 years. I'm talking about month
Oh, you
to
mean
month,
from
yeah.
15 to,
And then we look at November, you know. I'm talking about year before comparisons.
Yeah, you're right.
And I
Mostly due to animals and equipment failure.
well,
Well, I don't
yeah,
see
we need to
trees
go
as
after
a
the
red
trees.
It's only
flag,
one,
but.
so we're doing pretty good on trees. We have-
Right, I agree with that on the trees.
Is a squirrel a known, or is that an unknown, something shorted the circuit on there, and we're just gonna call it squirrel?
You can usually see.
I think, yeah, I think you will see that it's squirrel.
Getting fried up there.
So that's pretty.
Is there no way to keep them out, cage or anything to protect, or is this just?
Well, there's squirrel guards you can put up.
Now, probably we need to identify what areas are
Right.
due to squirrels, and then we can put some
Right.
guards around it.
That would look
Unleash a
what the
bunch of
biggest
kids with BB
increase
guns.
is animals, it seems like. Better.
But let me take that as an action item, and let me do an
Yeah,
analysis.
and then when you have the summer of outages, you know, on the back of the second page, average after average, average workday, average, the time and response, it would be nice to compare that with the previous 2 years to show that we're doing better.
Okay.
Because it's hard for me to look at this and just quickly determine that we're making improvements. And I would think that would be our goal, you know.
Okay, we
It's
can
hard to
have-
be perfect, but we need to show that we are improving from
Yep,
previous.
I agree 100%.
Okay,
So we'll add that the next meeting. or
Okay.
next mixed water. Anything else on the outages?
I don't think so. Nothing up here. Let's go on.
Projects updates, we finally have, AC Power and Light, feeding the, Waverly Lift Station. They're the ones providing the power, so we went ahead and removed the 75 kVA three-phase transformer that used to feed the, lift station. In addition, we removed all the, three-phase overhead lines on Waverly Road because they were, they widening the road, so we had to remove it anyway. We're installing LED lights right now at the, Hill Creek Water Resource Recovery Facility. I think there's about 21 LEDs. Yes, 21. So we're putting LEDs in Hill Creek. What else? Doing some work on, Shawnee Street with, overhead, distribution lines. Go back. And for 2016, we have the, originally replacing the overhead, distribution line at, Parma. And talking with Bruce, we're gonna do it underground for less than the budgeted amount. I think it would be a better installation and should last longer than the overhead. So we'll get started, in March. There'll be an item that will be presented to the commission, next month. On the generation side, we are moving, forward with, the transformer replacement in sub 1. We drained the oil from the existing transformer on Tuesday. KMU is gonna be coming within the next couple of weeks to remove the transformer. This is at no cost to the city, so we'll be saving some dollars there. And we're working on the, generator relay protection. That should be completed by March or April. We're still waiting an answer from, Alstom. They will be providing the FX6, circuit breaker for the sub 1. We still, right now, we don't have a delivery date, but should be somewhere around April, if not May. The substation is out of service until May, so hopefully you'll fit in within that window. The transformer should be on site by March 31st. So everything should be, installation and testing should be done around April. And we should have a fairly new substation by May. And that's all I have on reports.
Questions, comments, commissioners? I entertain a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion Waldman, second Learned. All in favor? Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you. 29 minutes. That's the way to start the year, boys.
I picked up on that.
I feel we got a track.
Well, I'm telling you, listen, Matt, you know that.
Yeah.
Not that I ever want to do it again.
Yeah.
Going back to the invitation to visit Kill Creek, is there any particular days or times you'd like to visit the facility?
whenever all the organisms are awakened, ready to,
They're ready to go. So we're getting ready to get a new microscope, and we can actually put them up on the screen where you can actually check them out, so it's actually pretty interesting.
Where's the flashing
Thursday.
street light, LED, center,
Where at?
northwest corner, of Center and Madison? Saw it coming here tonight. It's the farthest north of the, stoplight. Center and Madison, yeah.
So we have some indication on.
It's on and off.
That'd be great.
Quick.
Yeah, well,
So,
And
realistically, it's probably
Oh,
hard
yeah.
for everybody to specify a way to do it. Somebody picks
okay.
a date and.
Well, I just thought, I know way here,
I'm
Yeah.
guessing either.
cause I know that's hard to do, audit on those lights too.
Well, they can't. I mean, you can't see it during the day.
No, no, but
You know, so
we work for a utility company, we always have servicemen every
but then
quarter,
somebody
6
just don't
months,
want to work
we
for a
do
while
an
or
audit
around
for
a
them.
little bit.
That's the only way you catch it, stuff.
Well, maybe.
Well, we rely on the residents. Trust me, they
Yeah, cause I don't know what
If it's supposed to be there and it's not there,
Yep.
we have
Yep,
no problem.
they report it. Yep, which is
I'll
good.
propose a date and
Took care.
time and.
Yep.
Do it need to be done today?
Yeah, it has to be during.
Oh, I mean, I guess we don't run at night.
The organisms sleep.
They won't be moving.
I bet we-
I
Turn
wish
the
that
lights
was the
on.
case. I wish that was the case.
I'm pretty much.
Do we have to provide our own black light?
Yeah, yeah.
But I do wanna congratulate you for your utility report. It was
Oh,
great.
good.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Learned a
okay.
lot.
That's what I like to see, more operating people.
Yeah. Well, it's easier when it's coming from somebody that does it,
Yeah.
you know. A lot better.
I'm good whenever.
Lunchtime or early in the morning?
It doesn't matter. Lunchtime is better. Like 8 in the morning.
Lunch is better for you? Yeah, alright, that's fine. with me.
Yeah, well,
When you gonna do it?
Yeah, whenever you guys want, just let me know. We'll be
Send
more
an
than
email
happy.
out?
I'll pull everything up on slides, you guys can actually see the whole gamut working. I will tell you, if you wanna walk or drive, it doesn't matter to me, but by the time you walk through all the buildings, if you wanna walk or drive, it's a pretty extensive tour. So just let me know what kind of time frame you guys got, and I can actually plan the tour around how much time you guys got. Cause if you really wanna do it start to finish, you're probably 2 hours. Other than the blower room, it's a little loud inside the blower room, no hard hat, we don't have anything overhead.
Chapstick. Because, you know, you lick your lips a lot unconsciously.
Don't lick your lips on top of
And
the
once
table,
you
okay?
are out there, you do not wanna leave.
You know, fun fact though, with that
It's
said.
a fuzzy taste, you know.
Fun fact with that said, to be honest, the wastewater treatment guys have the lowest time off of any other profession.
It's built up all
Exactly
kinds
what
of
it is.
immunity.
You're actually exposed to everything that's floating, because as those rotors turn, they actually produce, I mean, it's a mist, I mean, it's air. And that stuff is on you all the time, but, as far as sick time, I haven't used a sick day in probably 6 years.
Play that softball out there, I'm probably pretty immune.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, so as you're exposed to it, it's just like the teachers in the school with all the little kids and their snotty arms and all that stuff, the more of that stuff you're exposed to, the better off you are. I hate saying that.
We don't have the antibacterial stuff now.
Yeah, don't need that.
We'll coordinate something.
Yeah, whatever works for you guys. Okay. We'll see if we can get a fair amount of us to go, and if we can't, well, yeah, no big.
Yep, actually, we can get more, there's 2 or 3 of you, or 4 or 5 of you, or if we need to do 2 or 3 different tours, get what you need. Whatever time works for you guys, we can make it happen, so. It's actually a whole lot easier going out there, seeing it in person, to understand what's going on. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
saying this stuff, kind of, yeah, you know, I remember seeing that.
Oh, yeah, 'cause it's just, you know, so many different
Oh,
facets, pieces, motors.
just talking about electric motors, I've been trying to keep all in your head, I've got, over 60-some different pumps. Each one got motors, some of them got VFD drives, so it's hard to keep all that in stock.
Is everything electric driven, or do you have any